What is next for Dricus Du Plessis? After losing his belt to Khamzat Chimaev by unanimous decision, the former champ is now sitting at the #1 contender rank in the UFC's middleweight division. Given the decisive nature of his loss to Chimaev, it is highly unlikely DDP will be receiving an immediate rematch. While Dricus did successfully defend his belt twice, which is of course above the average for a UFC champion in the modern era, his reign at the top of the 185-pound weight class was not nearly long enough to justify an immediate rematch, considering how one-sided his loss to Chimaev was. This wasn't a controversial split decision or a sudden KO. Dricus didn't zig when he should have zagged. He lost 50-44 on all three judges' scorecards. And unlike certain former champions, Dricus does not have the massive fan base required for a completely unjustified title rematch. Even Dricus's coach, Morne Visser, who's been receiving a lot of flack for his comments following the loss, said DDP isn't ready for a rematch with Khamzat, and that they would turn down any offer they got for a rematch were the UFC to extend one. However, DDP did make one thing very clear in his post-fight interview following the loss. After giving Khamzat his well-earned props, Dricus made his intentions very clear that he wants to get his belt back. At age 31, DDP does still have a lot of tread on the tire, so the idea of working his way back to another title opportunity isn't out of the question for the South African, but it will likely take multiple wins to get his rematch, assuming Borz does keep the belt in the meantime, which, after what we saw at 319, feels pretty safe to assume. Given a potential rematch with Khamzat is at a minimum one, if not multiple fights away for Du Plessis, who should Dricus target for his return fight? Well, looking down the middleweight rankings, the options aren't great. It seemed like everyone was calling for an RDR matchup following 319, but with the recent announcement of De Ridder vs. Hernandez, we will have to wait for the Looney Tunes showdown. Having already etched wins over the other former champs still in the rankings, and with the other top contenders all already booked against each other, the highest ranked opponent DDP could currently line up with would be the #9 ranked Brendan Allen. Now, I do think matching Dricus up with a grappler would make sense from the perspective of giving DDP the opportunity to showcase some much needed improvement in his ground game. I don't love the idea of a Brendan Allen matchup, as I just don't think that's a name that would do a whole lot for the resume of Du Plessis. Fighting Whittaker, Strickland, Adesanya, Strickland again, Chimaev, and then Brendan Allen doesn't sound right to me. It would be too much of a step down in competition for the former champ, and it wouldn't be good business for the UFC. Also, a win over Brendan Allen certainly wouldn't warrant a rematch with Khamzat. Even if DDP showed great takedown defense against Brendan Allen, that really wouldn't do much to convince the fans, myself included, that he's ready for that rematch with Khamzat. These two guys are not in the same ballpark at all when it comes to their offensive wrestling, and they don't even share similar styles of grappling. So what is the former champ to do? He could wait for the two contender matches to happen, try to snipe off one of the losers, or whichever winner isn't granted a title shot. But that would probably put him on ice for some time, depending on what kind of damage is dealt in these matchups, and he would certainly be the A-side of any of these matchups by a good bit from a name value perspective. Knowing DDP's personality, he's probably itching to get back in the octagon as soon as humanly possible. One of the things his coach did say in that now infamous interview is that these guys hate losing. It leaves an awful taste in the mouth that lingers until you return to the win column. And despite the overwhelming nature of Khamzat's victory, Dricus did not look like he took a ton of damage in this fight. So I will now introduce to you the clear choice for Du Plessis' next opponent.
Who's that Pokemon? It's...
Who the fuck is that guy?
Man, I love a good Belal joke. All right, y'all. Serious mode. Enter the former welterweight champion, Belal Muhammed. Now, before you tell me, but Belal's not a middleweight. No shit. Of course, Belal is a welterweight, but he has stated on several occasions his interest in fighting at 185 pounds. Not only that, but he has specifically called for a double champ opportunity against Du Plessis when they were both title holders.
I just want to be the guy that did everything that you said I couldn't do. And then if we go up, if, what's his name, Dricus still has the title, he beats, what's his face, Adesanya, and, you know, he was trying to talk tough to me, I'll go smack him around.
In addition to this history, these guys have been beefing for what feels like years now, with both fighters clowning each other at every opportunity, especially after each other's title losses. I believe this is not only the best option for DDP at this time, but for Belal as well, and the UFC. When playing matchmaker, the bout needs to make sense for both fighters as well as the company for the matchup to actually get booked. So So I'll start with the DDP perspective, since that is actually who this video is about, but we'll circle back and talk about why this is the best fight for Belal at this juncture, and why it makes sense from a business perspective as well in the eyes of the UFC. Dricus needs to prove that he's significantly improved his defensive wrestling if he ever wants to get that rematch with Chimaev. If he can't beat Belal, he can forget about round 2 with Khamzat. Furthermore, Belal's name, all jokes aside, is actually worth a lot, and a lot more than those guys at the bottom of the middleweight rankings. After all, Belal is a former champion, and he has a record of 24-4, which is pretty close to Du Plessis' 23-3. And on top of that, Belal employs a far more similar style to Khamzat's UFC 319 approach than any of the current unavailable top contenders do. A win over Belal would be a great first step back towards that title picture. On the flip side, I think this fight makes a ton of sense for Belal Muhammed. Maybe even more sense than it does for Dricus, given Belal would be the one potentially getting credit for going up in a weight class, whereas a win for Dricus here would be slightly undermined by the fact that Belal is in fact a welterweight. Now, personally, I really wanted to see Belal fight the other former champ he's been beefing with in Kamuru Usman, but all signs indicate that that Usman fight is just not happening. I'm not too sure whether this is a Kamuru thing that he's just straight up not interested, or if it's the UFC that won't book that fight. Either way, credit where it is due, Belal has been extremely vocal about his willingness to take on his fellow former welterweight champion and his subsequent frustration in the fact that the matchup is not happening. With the current logjam at the top of the welterweight division, Belal is not going to be able to get back to a title anytime soon. JDM versus Makhachev is not even official for November yet, and the winner is most likely facing Shavkat. Even if Belal did wait, there's a decent chance his friend Islam might win that belt, and Belal has publicly stated on numerous occasions he would not be willing to fight Islam under any circumstances. And let's be real, the UFC hates this guy. They never wanted Belal to be champ in the first place. There's not a chance in hell they're giving this guy another title fight. I mean, it took a 9-fight win streak for this guy to get his first title shot. I just can't imagine Dana giving him another one unless he knocked off several contenders. At age 37, his welterweight title aspirations are largely in the rearview mirror at this point. And so with the Usman fight off the table, what name would be bigger for Belal's resume than the former middleweight champ, who is himself only 1 fight removed from his belt? On top of the legacy implications for Belal, there's also a very clear path to victory given his style. After watching Dricus get smothered by Chimaev in Belal's hometown of Chicago, you've got to imagine Belal would feel all the more emboldened in his ability to exploit that clear weakness in Du Plessis' skill set. If I were in Belal's shoes, I would call for this fight as soon as possible, knowing that the sooner the fight takes place, the better the chances are DDP doesn't make those adjustments he would have to make if he's going to have success against a wrestling-heavy style. Additionally, Belal hasn't fought since May, so he should be recovered from that JDM fight, and Father Time is on DDP's side as far as their athletic primes go. Now is the time to score a huge win over the former middleweight champion in a grudge match that he could potentially bait Dricus into taking on too soon. Now, from a business perspective, I think this fight makes great sense. And dollars. Sorry, I know that was corny, but I had to say it. You've got 2 former champions, both in their return fights following their title losses. These guys have real beef that's been building now for a significant period of time. And not only is there beef, you've got a guy from Chicago that would be lining up against the guy that just got booed for every media event for his recent fight in Chicago. I think this fight could easily headline a crowded fight night or be placed on a numbered event as a 5-round co-main event. So if this fight does get booked, who do you reckon would win? Do y'all think this is the right move for DDP? Let me know down in the comments below. And if you haven't seen my last video, please check it out. Thanks for watching as always. And until next time, cheers.
What we do here is go back.